All right, let's pray and we'll get started. All right. I thank you, Lord, for today. We thank you for the opportunity to come and gather and study your word. Pray that you just watch over us as we do so, that the Holy Spirit will direct it. We'll collect what we need from that information and use it wisely during the course of the week. Be with the ones across the street, Lord, that hear a message that may open eyes and give them an opportunity to have a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. And for the ones that are on that list that we put on, the ones that are traveling, just protect them, bring them back to us safely. For the ones that are wrestling with any kind of problem medically, that you just watch over that situation. Do what you do best as the great physician. Allow us to meet needs whenever possible. And above all, we give you all the honor and glory for everything that will take place here today and everything that's on that list. In Christ's name. Amen. All right, where we be?
We're at the top of the page on 298.
298. 298. Top of the page. Morning, sir. Function. Doing good. All right. Okay. What do we got here? Count the stars. Continuous. So we'll start with spiritual maturity. Is that close enough? All right. Let's see here. I got a scribbling tool here somewhere. Maturity. Okay, so you've got. There you go. What's the difference? You got the real world and you got God's world. There must be one because he mentions it a whole heck of a lot in the Bible. All right. That's exactly right. So these two are synonymous. So what does Satan do with that program? What does he do to it?
Distorts.
Distorts it. How does he distort it?
Gets people comfortable in the world system, so they don't focus on.
There you go. So he takes the real world. How many of you, well, let's put it this way. How many of you think of this as a permanent home? That's not a question you get asked that often. But to the world, it is home. It never changes. To you and I, it's just passing through. Okay? Having a technical problem there, were we? That rocket's not going anywhere, is it? So, that's basically what it's talking about. So he does a good job of taking this and distorting it. And if you can get into that program, the distortion program, you're going to have a problem with your spiritual maturity because you're going to depend on everything that you get out of the real world if you're listening to this plan instead of this plan. That's what they're talking about. All right? How many of you, how do I put this? Start your day. How many melancholies do we have in here? 1, 2. And we have a proud melancholy.
Well, we're all proud, aren't we?
Okay, so you start your day out with a list. For the
And a
most part.
process.
Even if it's in your head. Okay? Yes?
Of course.
Of course.
That's correct.
All right, that's just a given.
Certain procedures that have to be taken care of.
All right? And the thing of it is how do you make sure that list comes about?
Write it down. Usually doesn't.
Usually it doesn't. But the thing of it is you think of it as okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right?
Paper in your pocket, when you think of it, you take it out and you write it down.
Is that what it is? So you kind of, it's a variable list?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that'll work too. But here's what I'm talking about. You've got a list, all right? Satan knows your list. God may have a list, and you have to be sure that your list and his list correspond. All right? That's called spiritual maturity. Why? Because the world's going to tell you one thing, this world, and this world is going to tell you something else. You need to learn to keep listening to this world and not the other one. And in doing so, what happens to you is you become a source of information for everybody that's around you, whether you want to or not. All right? That's spiritual maturity. That's when somebody can use you as an anchor and not be looking around for something to hook up to that's not real. And that's important anymore. All right? 2, reality is always challenged in life, but especially to the believer who is spiritually mature. The more mature you get, the bigger the scenario is going to get to cause you to come off the path. Everybody thinks when I hit spiritual maturity that Satan leaves me alone. Wrong. Dead wrong. Okay? All it does is redouble his efforts to cause... You realize why he would do that? Say it.
To slow you down.
Slow you down. Okay? You're making advances that he does not appreciate. Number 2, how many people have eyes on you as their Christian marker like Paul told them to do? Focus on me. I'll show you how to do it. If you're one of those individuals, you're a good mark. Abraham was a good mark because of the things he did. Satan would love for him to crash and burn. So what do we do when we have conversations about Abraham? Abraham was God's man. Abraham was this. Abraham was that. And then what do we say about him? Abraham made mistakes. Abraham did this. Abraham, he did Hagar instead of his wife. You understand what I'm saying? We'll choose out those other things, but God doesn't see it that way. Go ahead.
Have we ascertained that because of the Job story that Satan and God are in a conversation?
Oh, yeah. Oh, shucks, yes. How many times do you think your name comes up at the throne?
Mine, not much.
You hope it doesn't. That's the thing. You hope your name doesn't come up. Yes, ma'am.
Every time Satan see you making
Progress.
he's gonna go to God about it.
That would be a good thing.
In a way,
You can pretty much put that down on a piece of paper and keep it in your pocket.
you kind of turned into a squeaky wheel.
Somewhat. But why was Job picked out of the pie? That was really random. At least we thought it was random. But who noticed Job first? Satan noticed Job first. What did he notice about Job? What does he notice about you? Every time an uplifting word comes out of your mouth, I have the impression that Satan is going like this. La, 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 because he doesn't want to hear it. It stings him.
So two things. One, I thought God brought him up first, not Job, or not Satan.
I don't know. What did
Look at my servant.
what did he say? How did he say?
Job.
Have you considered my servant Job?
Have you
Satan-
considered? No. Have you considered my servant Job?
Yeah.
He didn't say no, did he?
No, but it wasn't him that brought it up.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay.
So, okay,
No,
wait.
that's cool. But I'm just saying the best thing. What I'm saying is the guy was noticed, and he knew all about it.
Well, and then the other thing is that's the only one that's recorded for us.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't-
God only knows how many others there are. All right. It could be. Have you considered my servant Bill? What would you say? You'd say, well, yeah, I have noticed him. He's getting to be a real pain in the neck. I'm serious. As God is my witness, that's the conversation that's coming down. And what does that do to Bill? Bill doesn't know this conversation took place. How many of you know what gossip is? What is gossip?
What the ladies do before we start class.
Okay, all right. Chit chat before class. That'll work. All right. Gossip is generally putting out information about somebody, whether it's true or not, doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's something that's spoken not with that individual being present. Okay? And I would imagine that these conversations go on all the time around you or whoever happens to be doing what the Lord intends for them to do, because that information has to be disseminated. They are not all-knowing. They are not everywhere at one time. They don't have all the characteristics of God. They've got to have a communication system. So if you come up on their radar, that is going to be a problem for them. They have to take care of it. That's why this kind of stuff, that's why spiritual maturity is important. You have got to get mature, or you can't take these attacks. You're going to crash and burn somewhere.
Well, where I was going with that Job thing is I would like to think that if we all led our lives thinking that conversation between God and Satan was going on 24/7, then it would make you think about all of your movements. You know, that two people are watching.
Let me give you a reason. How do you spell? Is that how you spell lie? Okay. How do I want to put this? Satan has no access to heaven. There you go. There's one of the biggest lies that's traveling around right now. I guarantee you most people you talk to about Satan are going to think he's already in hell. And unless you are wise enough to study the Word and hear it, you're going to believe that nonsense. So you're going to conduct yourself as if something else is going on besides what is going on. And that's a problem, and that's always going to be a problem. Now, it says, especially to a believer who is spiritually mature, closer to maturity, get a testing of reality. So that's what he's talking about. The more you have this, the more you're going to realize that you're living in this. This does not belong to him. He made it, but it doesn't belong to him. It belongs to him. So he's allowed to do anything with it he wants until Christ comes back. It's that simple. All right? Now, the next one. What is more real to Abe? Hopeless situation or reality of the integrity of God? So you got Abe. Okay? No kids. God. Promise. Okay? There you go. You have to determine every day what's going to be real to you. Whatever the world's saying or what God's telling you is true. Every day. All right? How do you take it and make that thought go out of your head? How did Abe make the thought leave his head that he was not going to physically produce children unless God did what he said? You're getting a big handle on faith. That's the ticket. How did he do that?
You mean come to terms with it? Or
Yeah, how did he come to terms with it? I have the book. I can go to that book and route through that route. I can chase through that thing all day long and find answers to my questions, answers to my doubts, answers to why I should have faith, why I should have hope, why I should even be looking that way. How did he do it?
Robbie, he had direct communication.
Correct. One of two ways. He took what God actually said, okay, and what God said was his promise. What else did he do? He ran the promise, which the promise became doctrine, by the way, which is everything you've got parked on your lap. What is you have parked on your lap? The Word of God. When God says something, you can use it as doctrine. He said that. Now he has got some doctrine to work with. That's why you can say he had faith rest. Every time he had a little, and as we get those next batch of papers, I want you to understand something. The words they use for that says he never ever, from the moment he had that conversation with God, ever had any doubt about it. I don't know how that happens in a human brain. But it does say that. Yes?
It's the heart that God sees, not what.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
There you go. It's your heart, not your head. Your head can overrule a lot of stuff.
Right.
But your heart, which is your spirit, is something that is beneficial all the time. It's beneficial.
How do you reconcile that he staggered, well, he staggered not the promise?
Mm-hmm.
How do you reconcile that with when he bailed on that and succumbed to Sarah's wishes in when he was Hagar?
Well, that was prior to all of that taking place.
Okay,
That's why.
timeline.
Timeline. That's what that, yeah, I went through the same thing. I think Yeah, come on, he was out diddling with Hagar while he was having this, no, it was pre-promise. That was a pre-promise boo-boo. Okay? So, it was a pass. Go ahead, check it out. I'm pretty sure it was. Because he was sexually dead after that, because he wasn't sexually dead when he produced Ishmael. So something happened after that little shooting match that he ended up, nothing worked. Okay? So, I'm just saying, I'm just going by what I know physically. So, anyway. So, that's what it's talking about. Now, divine righteousness is a principle, divine justice is a function. So all he had to do was take the doctrine, which he did, and when he took the doctrine, he used it, and when he used it, he came out with a result. The result, U-L-T, result was faith unchanging. I don't know how you spell changing. Is that close enough? That's what they're talking about. Maximum doctrine resident in the soul makes a decision in favor of reality and integrity over the hopelessness of a situation in life. So you come up with a hopeless situation in life, whatever. How did you look at your shooting match when it started?
Not good.
Not good. I mean, please understand something. Hopeless situations arise all the time. All the time. Take that hopeless situation and you run it through doctrine and you get a response from God. That's the one you hang on to. I remember when Kathy was really young, 23, when you had uterine cancer.
24.
24? All right. And I remember a conversation the doctor had with us. When I find him, I'm going to slap him. He said, "You're not having any kids. Your parts is broke." How much do you put into a kid over their lifetime? And 5 children later, I think I'll go with the Lord's plan than his plan. Okay? Why? Because doctrine just gives you a comfort. Whether I would have children or not, I didn't know, but I put it in his hands. Okay? And in doing so, you do something that the world cannot do. You can unburden yourself because of it. Yes, sir.
Just going back to the question of Hagar.
Yeah,
and
where's the timeline?
Yeah, in 16, Genesis 16 is where he tells, the Lord tells Hagar, "Behold, you're pregnant."
Mm-hmm.
It's in 17 where Abraham and the covenant of the circumcision happens.
Okay.
And
So-
it says, "Walk before me and be blameless. I will make a covenant with you, for I have made you the father of many nations."
Okay.
I guess I was going from 15 where he
Yeah.
promises kids.
Go ahead, what?
15 is where he made the promise.
He had
You're gonna have
the
kids.
original promise that he'd be the father of many nations came before Hagar, then the.
Okay, so how do we do it? Hang on. You got promise?
Yeah, the
Promise.
Yeah, actually, the promise.
But it was a pre-promise?
Yeah, the promise was sort of given to him in chapter 12, when he said, you know, leave this area.
See,
I
this
will
is
make
this
you
is
a
how you
great-
learn.
make you
Pre-promise,
into a great nation. And
Okay.
then later on.
and then Hagar
in 15
shows up here.
Right, in 15.
Okay.
Abraham's even more concerned because he was thinking that maybe one of his servants will be the inheritance. And God says, "No, it will come from your own body."
Okay.
But he didn't tell him that it will come from Sarah. He just said it will come from your own body.
So he was thinking Hagar was a good
Exactly.
switch.
I think
Okay.
by reasoning, he thought, well, okay, that's probably, because in 16 is when
So
the
this is-
maidservant is handed over.
This is
to
real
Abraham.
world. Okay.
Yeah.
There's God's world.
Right.
Okay.
And then in 17 is when it really becomes very clear that God says, no.
Okay. Can we get it ironed out?
That's when the covenant of circumcision took place.
Right. Okay, so that sealed the promise.
Right.
Okay.
But
Is that
yeah,
correct?
Right, and
Okay.
in no case in chapter 12 or 15 did God say Sarah would be the
Okay,
the mother.
all right.
You know, he
So
just
still,
said- just
so we're
kept
still
telling
pretty
Abraham
close.
to
The
be the father.
pre-promise, Hagar was a fling,
Right.
and then over here we had this.
Right.
But the implication is that because Sarah laughed, and then the Lord said, "Why did Sarah laugh?"
Yes,
And
that
then
was,
she
that
gets
was
a
during
little,
the
little smack upside the head.
Right, that's during the And
Yeah.
it became very clear that it would be.
This is called Peyton Place, okay?
Yeah.
Just in case you wanted to know, it wasn't a new story in the 60s and 70s. It happened way back then too. So, just in case you wanted to know. So you see what I'm saying? So here's a real world that he's in, and here's what God's world, and what happens over here. You've got Sarah, and what's Sarah? She's the same guy type of thing he is, laughing and thinking God's not going to hear it. There's a sharp one for you. So all I'm saying is, with all these things that are going on, all you're looking at here is two people that are going for spiritual maturity. All right? And everybody is supposedly shooting for the same thing. Abraham is a pattern of it. You're going to mature as you go through scenarios. He went through a phenomenal scenario with a phenomenal promise and gave us a pattern for how we're supposed to do it, is what they're talking about. Now, it says, when they're talking about that way, it says, maximum doctrine resident in the soul makes a decision in favor of reality and integrity of God over any hopeless life situation. Now, here's what Barnhouse says after that. He says there, follows a quotation of wonderful contrast of faith and unbelief in John Bunyan's Come and Welcome to Jesus. I want you to know something. I'm reading Charles Haddon Spurgeon, S.P. Spurgeon's biography. He came about his walk with Christ because of Pilgrim's Progress. All right. He fought for 15 years as a young person. Really, if you want it, you can see a young Christ. He was totally engrossed in learning, but one of the things he used again and again was Mr. Bunyan, and then when he used him in all of his sermons, and he did all of it because it made such an impression on him. So that's why he would pull it out. Bunyan says, let me give here the Christian reader a more particular description of the qualities of unbelief by opposing faith unto it in these particulars. Faith believed the word of God, but unbelief questioned the certainty of the same. All right? You're going to believe in God no matter what. One of the things I've just finished reading about him is he did battle with wanting to become an atheist. I mean, as far bar none, I don't think anybody puts anybody any higher in theological circles than Spurgeon. All of his sermons and stuff, but he wrestled with it because he couldn't figure out how to be saved. So he thought maybe it'd be better just to say he didn't exist.
But that's a classic example of God and Satan.
Fighting and fighting and
he's
fighting.
in the middle of
and
where do
fighting.
you think he got the thought?
Exactly. So it's really interesting how it comes together that way. Second one. Faith believed the word because it's true, but unbelief doubteth thereof because of what? It is true. Now how does that work? Anybody that stayed in the path of that volcano in Hawaii, every account that came out of there said, get out of the way of the red stuff. It won't exist. How many people died in that? I think, if I'm not mistaken, over 15 people died because they didn't move and they got trapped. Okay? Why? They're looking at truth. I'm looking at truth. Their truth is different than my truth. Somebody's going to be wrong. All right? That's what they're talking about. Faith sees more in a promise of God to help than all the other to hinder. But unbelief, notwithstanding God's promise, saith, how can these things be? That's all they're doing. They're arguing about whether it's true or not, again and again and again. 4. Faith will make thee love in the heart of Christ, when his mouth he giveth reproofs. But unbelief will imagine wrath in his heart, when his mouth and the word he saith, he loves us. So what do they got? Every time it's going to be plus and minus, plus and minus, plus and minus, all the way down the list. Never gets away from it. Talk to anybody about Jesus Christ. I come to Christ because I don't want to spend eternity in hell. And they said, well, classic response, I don't believe there is a hell. How do you test that? Is that me?
Yeah.
My leg just buzzed. Probably Dan again. Dan's sending pictures from Ireland. 10-4. So, at any rate, killer.
Actually, the guy that you have your quote up there for.
Blaise Pascal?
Had Pascal's wager,
Okay.
where it was, and I'm gonna not do it justice here, but if you don't believe there's hell, okay, if you're right, then there's nothing, okay?
Not a problem.
Right. But if you're wrong,
It's a serious problem.
it's a serious problem. So you don't gain anything if there is no hell, okay?
Right.
But you lose everything if there is.
Yes.
And if you take the reverse, where you believe there is a hell and you're wanting it, you gain everything because there is a hell and you believe in Christ.
Correct.
If there is no hell, but you believe in Christ, you lose nothing.
Exactly.
All right, let me ask you a question, okay? How many of you would live the
Look up
life you're
Blaise
living
Pascal's
now,
wager.
or how would you change your life if there was no Christ? I think of that every now and again. Number one, I don't think I would want to be nasty to people for no good reason. I would want to help people.
I'll be sad.
Ma'am?
I'll be sad.
You'd be sad, okay, but you would, okay, all right. But you see what I'm saying? So what it amounts to is the moral man is a functioning being. It functions well. It has good standards, but they're not God's standards. Okay? So that's what Pascal's talking about. When I talk to somebody about whether or not they believe in Jesus Christ, I never point to what they're doing wrong. I always point to what Christ did for them to short circuit anything that may come in the future. And then they're not so defensive when you start talking to them. It appears to help, at least bridge the gap of somebody that's I think a lot of the responses come from fear, that they make in the back, the little niggle in the back that said, yeah, there is a hell and it's hotter than blue blazes. And they don't know how to handle that. But with all of these things going on, that's what it's talking about. All right?
Does hell actually exist yet?
I don't think Gehenna, I don't know whether he's fired up Gehenna or not. We know Hades is there. I don't know that it's as bad as Gehenna. It hasn't consumed the rich man, but it did make the rich man thirsty. So, have you come across anything that...
Well, something's in the middle of the earth that's gonna implode at some point, from what I understand.
Okay, all right. Well, by God, I'm leaving this planet. I'm going to go to the first moon base if this one's imploding. But yeah, but the thing of it is we know that there's a chasm. It doesn't say a whole lot about Hades other than it's just a place of torment. But I don't think it's the ultimate torments, because that's not generally, it's generally saved for the place called Gehenna, which is already, I assume, made. I don't know whether the switch has been turned up to super hot or not, but it is just waiting for Satan and his demons and anybody else that decided to throw in with that bunch of idiots.
But Satan gets cast down, right? I mean,
Yes,
whenever
he gets kicked out.
The lake of fire, cast, I want to say down.
Down, yes.
Into the lake of fire, for sure.
Yes.
So that could imply middle of the earth, but the middle of the earth.
Could be, and it could be a holding place, could be where he stays for the 1,000 years and then is released and then gets chunked into the final resting. That, I'd have to sit down and do a flow chart.
Hey Scott, big picture says, what is down? Down is up for some people. There's inside, but where is down?
Right. Yeah, I think that's like what is, yeah. Okay. All right. We'll work on that too. So
Or not.
At any rate, that's kind of the way that things are laid out as far as that goes. Now, and it says, excuse me, faith will make thee love Christ in the heart, and then all of that stuff. Faith will help the soul to wait, all right? Though God defers to give, but unbelief will snuff and throw it all if God makes any tarrying. In other words, they want to hurry up and get God done with, but they don't really know what they want after that, all right? Faith will comfort in the midst of fears, but unbelief causes fears in the midst of comfort. That is one that's going on right now. That is a common denominator now. Everything has to be put into a fear-based program. You have to be afraid of this or afraid of that or afraid of this or afraid of that. How many of you are afraid of rattlesnakes? Why?
Only live ones. Only live ones.
Only live ones. Okay, why? Because it's a natural fear, all right? How many of you are afraid of an asteroid hitting the planet? Yeah, what the heck, you know, I've seen one asteroid, you've seen them all. Yeah. The thing about it is in the news here lately, there's one coming close by again. And they come by all the time, all right? But that doesn't seem to be a problem, but that little snake can be a real wrestling match.
Because you're in his territory if you're with a snake, and they know more about their territory than you know about their territory, and how they know more about how they're going to react in a certain situation with you than you know.
She's been studying this way too much. Yes,
Well, no,
it's
I
very
mean,
true.
it's just like-
They're comfortable
it's
where they
just
are,
like-
and you're usually an interloper.
Right, you know, when people get bit by sharks out in the ocean, that's their house, not yours.
Yes, it is. That's true.
You
And then
know,
you're shaking your leg like a piece of food all the time. That's not real
I
smart
mean,
either.
but that is, it's their domain, not yours.
Right,
and you're not
exactly.
smart.
And that would make a lot of sense. And they don't bother me a bit.
So when we went to Arizona in the Grand Canyon,
Yes.
I had a request that I wanted to see a rattlesnake, but I didn't want to be startled or scared
Right,
or come
right.
into the cockpit. And when we went, we took the mule ride down, and Dave and I was mad at Dave, but anyway, it went on a walk.
What's a need?
So he was behind me, you know, with his camera as usual, but off to the side, I saw something moving. So I looked over, and probably 10 feet off the path, there was a snake moving. And so I was like, I'm pretty sure it has rattles on it, but it was a different coloration than what we have here. So
Yes, it would be.
yeah, so Dave
Mhm.
came up and was able to get a picture and, you know, blow it up differently. And then, so I got my request, and that was great.
And you weren't mad after that, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right. And Dave got out of there without you putting the snake in his bag. Okay, all right, that's what I make sure. All right. All I'm saying is yes. But the thing about it with all of what you're saying is, Satan knows this world very well. You and I are really interlopers. You don't know all the trips and traps that he can set. And with all these things, I'm going to have to depend on the one that controls everything. When I know that this is my path that God has set out for me, my desire is to put as few wiggle waggles in it as I can. By listening, by taking in enough doctrine, by functioning the way he tells me to, by doing all the things he tells me to get done during the course of a day. I want to stay as close to this as I can. Satan wants to do everything he can to flex you off of it. What's it take to make you angry? Why were you mad going down the trail?
Because of my sister-in-law in Illinois. She kept telling me to
what were we
motivate my mule.
What were we?
I
You
said,
just
"I'm
called your
not gonna
sister-in-law a
keep-
mule?
I'm not gonna
Oh,
keep
okay.
beating my mule.
What were we talking about when you came in? Manly Beasley? What would he call it? Heavenly sandpaper. Heavenly sandpaper, all right? That is one of the things that you have to understand. As you as a Christian, you as a spiritual Christian, you as a spiritually mature Christian, it gets heavier grit. It's not 180, it's usually 30 to 50. Taking hide off when they're rubbing you. Why? Because you are supposedly able to take it. Yes, ma'am.
I think our reaction depends on how close we are to the Lord. I mean, if we've been studying and we're in,
Correct.
like, our response is, it may still be a response, but not as dramatic as if we hadn't
Correct.
studied in X number of days or
Very much so.
something along those lines.
When are you least hungry? Right after you shoveled in some groceries, right? All right, so then what happens? The further you go from the groceries, the more hungry you get, so you got to do it again. Please don't think it's any different than that with doctrine. The more you take in, yes,
You get hangry.
yes.
You need a Snickers bar.
You need something.
I'll do it.
Yes, somebody had their hand
I
up.
was gonna say,
Yes, sir.
for the clerics in the room, define anger.
Okay. All right,
There's
Scott, what do you
various-
got?
There's
Anger is,
mightily annoyed,
no, hang on. There's righteous,
constantly concerned.
okay.
There's
There's,
sand
and
spur and
there's,
the flip
what else will there be? Hold on. You got a good list. You're excellent. Go ahead.
Maybe frustration.
Frustration? Is that what you said? Don't use too big of words I don't have spelled out. Okay.
How far
So
down
you
the
got
list is
righteous,
breaking things?
anger, and then you got frustration, anger, okay. That one, is this one legit?
Courtney Parkway.
Or today, Parkway. Okay. Is that one legit? It has to be legit. No, it's
Now,
not.
somewhere in there you have to draw
We
a
got a
big
problem
fat
with that
line
one, all right.
that says action after that.
Okay, well, here we go, though. You got this
Become action.
righteous anger, frustration anger can be either or, okay? Let me give you an either or for the frustration. If you're doing something the Lord knows you should be doing, and there's frustration, sometimes it's your physical limitation. Sometimes it's outside sources making it difficult to get a job done, okay? And those things are frustrating, but they're not debilitating, okay? If that makes sense? Then you've got a frustration that comes out of the fact that you can't get where you want to go. Now, you need to determine at that point whether you're going to get angry or you're going to get on your knees. Okay?
And at that point, if you get angry, you step out of the sphere.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
out.
You do. You step right out of the dynasphere, and if you step out of the dynasphere and you're not in here, okay? This is me. Okay? All right, that's me, and I'm in the dynasphere. What is the dynasphere? This is the section, we'll have to bring that back in. This is the section where I'm doing God's work. Okay? Now, why? I've got doctrine making me work here. If I'm outside of that and I blow it and I hear, I want to be on my knees because I want to be back in here. Period. Don't wrestle outside that dynasphere because you're wasting your time. All I'm saying is that's what they're talking about with all of this. What other kind of anger is there for all of us guys? Evil. What's the two? Kakos. What's the other one? Poneros. Okay? Alright. What you got going here? This is one here where you're just kind of, I'm tired of fighting this, I'm going to have rotten thoughts, and I'm just going to run those rotten thoughts until there's an outcome. Hence, frustration. Right here. Okay? Now, what's the other one? Poneros. What's that one? I'm frustrated, I'm angry, and I'm going to go evil, and I'm going to drag as many people into that evil pile as I can. You're frustrated that nothing's going your way, everything's going south, and the problem is you don't realize that you've left the sphere. You're out.
And that's where discernment comes in, because there is a small little margin where that whatever you're thinking might be God's plan. It might be you're being used as a tool. Some sliver in there might exist.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Like you see some evil being done to somebody else and you're not really quite sure, but God says, don't let that happen. Well, your anger has to stop that person.
Correct.
All
All right, well, here's an example. How fast do you want to get better?
Oh, yesterday.
Yesterday. Now, when that doesn't happen, what happens to you?
Depression.
Depression, frustration, concern, all the things that go with it. So how do you fight that?
Well, he can fight the mental part by putting a little salve on it. I mean, I'm not saying you can't fight it, but at some point, it's all God's plan. I mean, it's just life, death. It isn't about
still here. See how you fight that?
So God's plan says you're supposed to still be here. At this point,
Exactly.
I'm connecting dots. I'm figuring out why. You know,
God's will. Now, go from that point, and you can start knocking off those frustration things.
Because you have something to compare it to.
Correct. Always. You always have that.
Which may have been the plan. You may have needed that, not that severity, but you know what I mean.
Right. But all I'm saying is there's situations everywhere like this that talk about that. All right. Now, faith, it says, will suck sweetness out of God's rod, but unbelief can find no comfort in greatest mercies. Now, what are we talking about?
No idea.
Rod? What kind of rod?
Shepherd. Staff.
What does a shepherd do with his sheep?
Guards them.
Gloria is getting outside the pasture field. She's got a fence. She's got her head stuck through the wire. She sees some grass over here. And by God, it looks a whole lot better than the grass over here. What does a good shepherd do? Knowing what she wants is something good.
Get the dog out.
Yeah, that'll work. Or come over with the staff and go, dink, catch her alongside the head, pull her back through the fence, and lead her over to where the grass is better. All right? She doesn't realize that there might be chickweed or some poison on the other side of the fence that the fence is keeping her from because she's not privy to that information. The shepherd is. Tom wants to get grumpy about not getting better. Shepherd knows exactly where he's at, knows exactly the time frame that's going to work for him. All he's saying is, do me a favor. Pay attention to me. Don't pay attention to what you're feeling in here, what you're feeling in here, what your body's telling you. Why? Because I own the body. I'm doing what I need to do with the body.
And the
I'll get you where you need to be, when you need to be there, if you will depend on me.
And that fenced-in area is the divine dinosphere.
Sure. Exactly. Always.
And your faith is on, the world is on the other side of the fence.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes it looks green.
Yes. Yes. The lady that we bought the house from for Josh, that he bought the house from, she wanted to go back home. Norma, she was in here for a while. We finished fixing up the house, and she said, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to leave. So I said, okay. And I hooked her up with Josh. Josh bought the house. That was in November. By April, she had called and says, is Josh in the house yet? She wanted to come back. I said, I'm sorry, sunshine, everything's changed. I've never heard from her since. Now, you understand what I'm telling you? A plan is a plan. Sometimes you do things you can't come back from, but that doesn't change the promise that you have in Christ at all. You still belong to Him. Okay? Okay. How many of you think God has a plan B? There's one, two. Anybody else?
Well, he knows the outcome, so.
It's a A-B mix.
I don't think that he's got his, well,
Okay.
he knows how it's all gonna shake out.
Yeah.
So, it's like Adam and Eve sinned, and I used to think that was,
Them leaving the reservation?
well, yeah, but I mean, I thought that we were now living in Plan B, but I mean, God had a purpose way back when.
Correct. It was plan A from the get-go. All right. There
You know, that's an important part, because a plan is a plan. It can't have anything else but from the very beginning. It's a plan. So it was all, to me, predetermined. That's just me.
Now, look at what's theology you're working with right here. Hang on. Wait a minute. Go ahead.
I just want to say that God knew about Plan A, which was man's fault, and He already made Plan B, which was Christ, to come and solve the problem.
Okay, you can look at it that way, I guess. Or plan A could be Christ who was there all the time, knowing that the fall was going to be. I understand exactly what he's saying. Now, who else had their hand? Yes, sir.
Problems with going with what he said. In order for you to have a plan B, you would have to, in the original plan, take a risk or take a path that is unknown.
So that
Okay.
your plan A failed.
Correct.
Which is
And plan A,
impossible.
and hold on. You're right. And plan A has never failed, by the way. Okay, just so you know. So what I'm saying is, here it is. Bobby, two eyes, That's my Indian name. Okay. It's Bobby.
You're giving the children ammunition, dear.
Okay. Now, see, that way I don't offend anybody, all right? Now, you see what I'm saying? Now, which one of these plans was God's plan?
The whole thing.
All of it.
Exactly. For 55 years, okay? Is that how many?
Your age?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
2007.
How long?
It was, no, February 2008.
Okay.
Oh, no, you lost your eyesight. 2007.
55. So 55 years of the plan had 2 eyes, and then the rest of the time is going to be 1 eye, unless we listen to Mrs. Gouldsby, and then it's going to get fixed
And tell them why.
somewhere because of my healing.
Every week she'd turn around
Okay.
in church and ask him if he had his healing yet. Every week.
Henry's wife, every Sunday. At any rate, now, here's the deal. You need to pay attention to all of this because what does God say? Yep, it's my plan.
You can't surprise God.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Sodom and Gomorrah, right?
Okay.
So Abraham says, or God, Christ says,
Okay.
we'll take them out because
Yeah.
they're sin.
Yeah.
Abraham says, what if there's 50? What if there's 45? Okay, it works down way down to 5 or 10.
Yeah.
Right.
So, there's that.
But God knew
And-
he was
and-
going to say that before he said
Exactly.
it.
So there is never a plan B.
Right. It's always been.
It's always been plan A.
With every contingency possible that could take place in that plan.
But
always
the
says.
world has a hard time buying that. Because that means somebody else is in charge of the plan. See, that's where the trouble starts. Man in his tremendous boundless knowledge, and he knows everything, okay? He's got a plan. The only problem he needs to realize is God even gave him that plan. All
And
right?
why have a plan when it's all over
There
ultimately?
you go. Well, I don't even know that it's over because I don't know how I put the program together. Go ahead, what were we gonna say?
So in eternity past, God in his omniscience knew the actuals and the possibilities,
Correct.
but he only factored the actuals into
Reality.
reality.
Correct.
So it's always, he factored everything that's gonna happen, so it's one continuous plan.
Correct. Now,
But he knew there would be deviations, but he didn't factor those in because they didn't actually happen.
all right. Well, here's the deal. I don't know whether we can explain this or not. All right, I'm gonna ask a question.
Just gonna ruffle
No,
everybody.
well, I'll try not to, okay? I'll try not to. Here's God's plan. All right. And you see, here's Barbara. And Barbara has a prayer.
And it ain't me.
That's a lot of prayers.
No, that's a mission. That's not a. All right, so Barbara's got a prayer.
So which Barbara?
Oh, we got, how many Barbaras?
Two.
Oh, there's 2
On the
Barbaras.
same
I'm sorry, I
row.
did even pay attention. All right, hang on, we'll go with Barbara S. And then, oh, we'll even do better than that. We'll go Barbara. Barbara C.
Oh, sorry.
And she's got a prayer. All right? And I notice they both have tumultuous prayers, all right? But here's the deal. How do both those prayers get to the throne at the same time?
God has a whole dimension that we can.
Oh, okay, yes, there it is, there you go.
And so
Now,
I explain to people sometimes, I said, look, I said, to us, 3 minutes just went by. I said, but God could have paused at any moment and made everything,
correct,
you know, for 60 billion years as far as we're concerned, because he's not locked in time.
correct.
You know, I use a DVD, for example. We're watching the show. We pause the DVD. We go fix popcorn, come back, sit down. The characters on the DVD have no idea the time stood still. You know, but yet, they, you know.
Now, do you see how much fun it is to talk about this kind of stuff? Barbara's prayer, they both took off. The moment they took off, their timeline for that particular prayer took time to get up here. Let me ask you another question. Did Daniel have a pause in life when he sent the prayer and the answer didn't get back to him that quick? Did his life just go on hold? No, it kept on going. And what happened? Down the timeline, something comes shooting back to you. When does it come shooting back to you?
In his time.
Oh, yes, every time. She's got her prayer, and let me tell you, every morning she gets up and she's looking east. She says, "Where's my answer?"
When is he going to turn into a
That's what a
friend?
barber. That's what a barber would do. Right? Is that what a okay? That's what a barber would do. So they're looking east. Okay?
You put that on a
What's
shirt.
the Andre man would do? What would Barbara do? That's what Barbara would do. All right. So here's the deal. When she pulls that prayer out and she's standing here looking east, and then she gets blasted with the answer to that prayer. Time didn't stop here, but time stopped here. Why? God,
Waste of time.
God never, ever, ever rushes things. His timing is always exceedingly perfect.
But it helps her from the moment of her prayer to when it comes back down.
Correct.
To keep tabs and connect dots and to figure out where it works, so when it does arrive, she'll know why.
Generally, you're going to do that after the fact.
It's nice to keep an eye out.
It's nice to
ahead of
try.
time.
It's nice to try to fill in the dots, but it's a whole lot easier if you let the answer come.
And what that
and
is,
then
let's
set
say
that up.
in his position,
Right.
he's got the prayer going. He would like to see this outcome, which he hasn't gotten to yet, and it's a real rough road. But all along, he's clocking the people he meets, the people
Correct.
he affects.
Correct.
Through his journey, he may have affected 5 or 6 other people who needed him to be there in order for that to
Correct.
happen.
That's exactly
Then the
right.
big prayer comes down. You can see the dots behind you and in front of you.
That's why the timeline here never stops. You never stop being
Aware.
Christian. You never stop being Christ's. All right? So that's why you're talking about faith and all this stuff. You had faith to shoot the prayer off to begin with. Now you're going to have faith to wait for the answer to come through. Every time I turn around and lift a prayer, my desire is to have the turnaround time be quicker and quicker. Why? I enjoy it.
There's
I
another
truly enjoy it.
another proponent is that what you think the answer is going to be might not be that.
Oh,
So
yeah,
you
I
have
get-
to keep your ears open for.
Yeah.
You may have gotten your answer, it just didn't come back the way you wanted.
No, that's very, very possible. That's not, that, I'm not really one that's gonna write down. Did you watch Jack Reacher? The first one?
Yeah.
When he gave the girl the piece of paper with the name on it, O-line, whatever? Okay? I'm not that presumptuous. I do not put answers on prayers and then put them on a wall up ahead. I want to take it to the Lord. Why? I want to know what He is doing in this situation, not what I can do. I know I can mess up anything that comes down the pipe, but that I want Him to talk to me. I want Him to tell me how to conduct myself.
And how do you know that he's going to talk to you? Because
I
you're
have to go on
listening.
faith.
You're
Well,
listening.
yeah, I'm listening, but that's even more than that. When I ship it off, I'm not shipping it off to nowhere land. I mean, my cousin just texted me the other day and said she had her knee done. Okay, now you have to understand, these are people that were soured on Christ 25 years ago because of an idiotic cousin. Okay? So it's taken me that long to get them back to where they even acknowledge it. She called and said, having a lot of pain, if you can lift any prayers, do so. Now, we're talking about, I don't even know how to explain how far they were pushed away because of his conduct. But I texted her back and said, prayer's already on the way to the throne, will not cease until told to stop. 2 days later, text her back. Bionic woman doing okay. Don't stop the prayers. Text her last night. How are you doing? Are you functioning? Are you ready for the Boston Marathon? She said no, but I had a bad day, but the prayers are working. Now, all I'm telling you is that is a prayer sent. I had no idea how it's gonna be received. Now I'm getting a better idea that they're believing what I'm telling them. That is important.
I'm gonna go way out in the weeds.
Oh, Lord of mercy.
Okay, so you got a young believer just coming into the fold, back in the fold in your case, so.
It's an older young believer.
So, and now there's what she might want as a young, and then there's what you may want in your maturity, okay?
Mhm.
Both prayers go up, boom, boom, boom. And now this is into the weeds. All right, do you think God thinks about the fact that her maturity might rest on getting that prayer answered or not? You'll survive
Yes.
it because your
It
faith
is.
walk is bigger than that. Hers might be really fragile, and a no answer might push her in the other direction.
Correct. And that's why when I text them back, I say, "Oh, prayer is working." And she says, yes.
Are you prepared for a no?
Oh, yeah, I'm always prepared for no. I know exactly how to say no, and I've learned how to take no. But I also know I have a young person here and a cousin that is expanding her knowledge of God and Christ.
And he
I
wants
want-
her there.
I want him to get the glory out of it, because how tough can it be to have a knee replaced? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I have a few markers to go by, so I know what she's going by, and I know how busy she is. So that one of the things I told her in the text, do what the doctors tell you to do, or I will stop praying. I'm real diplomatic about that kind of stuff. Because I said, it's imperative that you do what they say so that God can do what he can do.
Because the answer may be in there.
Correct. So all I'm saying is, this is what you've got going on here. This is what Abraham was doing. He's talking directly with God when God gives him words like this. And what does he do with it? He puts it in his little marble up here, runs it around every time, and every time something starts sneaking up and he sees it on the distance out there, he goes right back and says, I'm sorry, promise. Okay? What's Barbara's promise? What's Barbara's promise? He said, all you have to do is request in my name, and what happens?
If it is my will,
Now, how do they know whether they're shooting in the right category, in the right barrel? How did Abraham know it? He had the big boy talking to him. It was a little easier for him. I'm sorry. Okay? I mean, if I had a cloud talking to me or some guy shows up in my tent,
I'm on board.
that's right, okay? So all I'm saying is that what do they have to go by? Well, if you're asking his name and you know what your life is, and you say, well, I'm sorry, I'm not worthy of lifting a prayer. I'm sorry, you're plus R, you are.
Well, I was going to say, you just,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I know.
All right? So that's what you're talking about here. That's,
How would you have responded had she come back with a no if prayers aren't working?
I said, well, I'll keep praying.
Yeah.
What, my next question, what are you doing? Or do you need to ask the doctor about infection? I'm not stupid.
And then you got to have a very patient discussion about God's timeline.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in
Yeah.
his time.
Exactly.
Well, what if you were praying the wrong thing?
What if I was doing what?
What if you were praying the wrong thing?
And yeah, what if I was? I'm ready for that too. I'm not going to let it go. I know who they are. I know where they need to be. I know what he wants to do in their lives. They're not immoral people, but they're not walking with the Christ that I know.
Yet.
Yeah, but they get closer every time when we have these conversations. All I'm saying with all of this stuff that's going on, when you ask in names, when I went in for my Thursday checkup with my heart, I knew something was wrong. 6 weeks out. Isn't that how long you're supposed to work? Wait, 3 months or 6 weeks? Was it 6 weeks or?
You mean after the first
Yeah,
surgery?
when they would, yeah, when I'm allowed to ride in the front seat of the car again,
It wasn't
not
even-
hold my blanket or my
It
little
wasn't
teddy
even
bear.
6 weeks.
It was right at 6 weeks, wasn't it?
No, your
When they were
surgery
supposed to
was-
release me?
Your surgery was your second surgery was a month later.
Oh, a month later, 4 weeks?
March.
Okay, well, anyway, I knew something wasn't right. So when I went in there, I said, you know, something's just not quite right. The guy went, did it, and I found out that there was fluid building up around my heart. I didn't know what it was. It was pot luck. I won on 100. I needed to play the lottery. Okay. Anyway, so the guy said, here's the deal. You've got fluid buildup around your heart. We're going to have to stick, two options. One, we're going to have to cut you open again. That wasn't real high on my list. Okay. And number two was, all we'll do is cut you and put you in your tubes in, drain it off, nick the pericardium, and then let the body absorb the fluid. Is that how it works?
Well, they can put a drain in. Put the drain in.
Put a, yeah, they put the 2 lines in it, because I'm a double X. Okay? Everybody else is a single X, it's just 2 X's, I'm 4X. All right? I don't know whether that's good or bad, but when, in doing so, yeah, in doing so, I'm going on the thing, okay, God, I'm sorry, I know what I'm getting into this time, that's not good. You are not on my Christmas list right now, you need to do something about this. And what they did is they only had to cut me and put the tubes in and do what they had to do, nothing else.
So were you following doctor's orders?
I'm sorry?
Were you following doctor's orders?
I was walking every
He was
day.
such a good patient.
I did my loops around the nurse's station to get out of the prison and everything else, you know? I did all of that, but the thing of it is that wasn't what he intended. You know what the nurse told me when she was wheeling me up and told me, they took off a whole bunch of cc's of fluid. I don't know how much it was. It was a bunch. And they said, you know, you should be dead. I say, excuse me?
Well, that was what I was gonna bring, you
Yeah.
left out, is
You
that.
should, yeah. They said, you realize how much pressure was on your heart? I said, well, no, I just knew it was kind of uncomfortable. But the thing of it is my exact words to her, I'm sorry, I didn't get the memo.
But you did get the memo.
I did, to ask a question. And you know what the Lord did, and really neat thing, you know what the Lord does when you start putting yourself in His hands? He put a doctor in the emergency room, I don't even remember his name anymore, and one of the first things he does with any heart patient that comes in, and for anything, if you got a hangnail, he takes you in and takes a chest x-ray. And when he took the chest x-ray, he could see that there was however it shows up. It's probably going beep, 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 whatever, all right? And so he shipped me off and did what they were going to do. So the Lord put all the things in place for all these things, and my request was, I just want to be able to move around again. You know, when you're not even allowed to pick up a carton of milk for 6 weeks, that's sick. Or you drop something and you feel like a 95-year-old, nobody's 95 in here, is it? A 95-year-old curmudgeon that can't bend down to pick something up because you're not allowed to bend over. All right? All that kind of stuff. Well, that's how this is all going about. Abraham's doing the same thing. He's flushing it out there. I'm looking at different things to do, and Abraham is working the plan, all right? That's what you want to do every time. Work the plan. And then as you go, that's how you enjoy yourself, and that's how you enjoy Christ. I've seen him work in scenarios that just totally blow your mind. Just the weirdest things. Make a request, and here it shows up. And I mean, we're talking hours.
Here, I got one. It was unbelievable. 2 weeks ago, Saturday, I came home working on the full phone. Phone rings, it's my cousin. So what's up? He goes, listen, Mom's not going well. Okay. We're on the way to Kentucky. I said, is there anything I can do? He goes, pray for Mom. I said, how do you want that to go? You want Mom to get better? Or you want Mom to go home? To go to heaven? He goes, I want her to go mercifully.
Okay.
I send a prayer off. 5 hours later, I get the call, she's gone.
There you
So
go.
pay attention.
Pay attention.
And I always say, when you're asking, be ready for an answer.
Exactly.
Because it might not be
Exactly the way you laid it out.
what you wanted, but
Yes.
it's-
But it is.
And I just, when the phone rang, I knew it. Going, wow, 5 hours.
That was a fast turnaround time. They
It
got
was, just
they
like
got a
the
good
road
system there to the throne. Yes.
You know, it's like,
Exactly. And I mean,
it was unbelievable.
that's stuff that you only experience as you walk with Christ. You don't experience that in the world. All right? And you have someone to attribute it to. And you know how much glory he gets out of that? Because you're going to tell every living soul.
Oh, when I was over there, I told him, when we was at the cousin's house, I said, listen, you're not gonna believe this. And the cousin's kids were going, really?
Yeah.
I'm going, there it was.
Yeah.
You know?
It's important. It's dreadfully
It's amazing to watch.
Dreadfully important. What?
If you would like to lift a prayer for Millie.
Yeah.
I have been.
We don't know what Mom's doing, but boy, she's a hanger-on, let me tell you.
I was somewhere at Beef's house yesterday, and his girlfriend, how's, Bobby's mom doing? I said, well, I haven't heard this week.
Nope,
Must-
just
she's
hanging
still
in
there.
there. No? She just,
If anyone's gonna live forever.
yeah.
I mean, the fact that she was talking, like,
Yeah,
it's like.
it's really a roller coaster right now, but I mean, the thing of it
She couldn't
is,
even
I've
talk
totally
about
put
it.
it, the Lord's gonna take her, and I told my sister the same thing, because she was having a problem with her, thinking she was suffering. I said, believe me, if you think you're sitting at the kitchen table and Dad's eating popcorn, she's not suffering. Okay, that's just not happening. So don't be concerned about it, and I said, God's person, God's will, God's time.
That's the timeline right up there, Bobby.
Exactly.
Goes right through that
Yep.
wall.
And I said, she is gonna graciously slide right into heaven and not be a problem. She's gonna close her eyes and do it, which is exactly what we ask. And that's what all this is about. That's why to make a man a saint, grace is absolutely necessary. And whoever doubts it does not know what it is, or as a saint is, or what a man is. You don't have a clue as to how grace is functioning in your life. When he unveils that to you, you're gonna do one of the mouth dropping things that it hits the ground. Of all the options that he's put in your way and how grace has worked out and all the people that didn't make it. It's going to be amazing, and it's that simple. We have time to. All right, let's finish this page at least. What the heck? Faith maketh great burdens light, but unbelief maketh light ones intolerably heavy. That one we see again and again. Faith helpeth us when we are down, but unbelief throws us down when we are up. Okay? I don't know whether you have a clue as to what your faith does for you, but you will become more and more attuned to it the more and more you depend on it. And there's just no way. So we'll flip the page and start right there and maybe finish next. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Oh, and Steve and Joanna. Did you put that on there for me?
I did not, I forgot.
Okay. Well, Steve and Joanna had to go home for a funeral. Steve's sister, Pam, right? Cousin Pam passed away. The one we had on here that was wrestling with cancer. Okay. So we got Ken, Tom, James, Ann, Amy, Lisa, Spencer. Spencer Freeman has a bunch of different cancers going through him too. So he's kind of wearing out.
Yes.
Gracie, Katie, and Jenny. All right. Travelers, Dan and Laura.
What are you doing?
There's one of the churches that Dan and Laura they're at. They sent this at 7:30 this morning, so it must be what, noonish? 1:30 over there, were they 6 hours ahead of us, something like that?
Did you ask if they got a bulletin?
I didn't, but I figured sending a church is as good as a bulletin. So, and they sent Kathy a picture of a graveyard. Okay, so Kathy's happy now, she knows there's a graveyard. And I told her that when Kathy saw the graveyard, she got all lightheaded. Then they also sent me a picture of blackberries. All right, so there's berries over there. I told him he's not allowed to do the tea-berry shuffle in front of a blackberry patch. So you just have to know all the ins and outs. So they checked in and everything is fine. And I told them they're in our prayers. So, all right.
Tea-berry shuffle?
What else?
I'll show you.
It's pretty.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are you from there?
Yes, not a problem. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to share my story.
Go right ahead, boss.
Because this lesson is about my life. I wanted to
Come on.
say, it is true, when you try to get closer to God, Satan got his tactics for you. I prayed, the Lord, I was praying 6 o'clock every morning. So he said, Gloria, go into the church and pray, but don't tell nobody, I'm gonna add on to it. So I went into church from Monday through Friday. I prayed 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't leave until he says so. So what happened was, then like Job, my life turned like a Job situation. I guess, like you say, Satan get upset when you try to get close to God. He'll do everything to stop you. I used to love to dance and praise the Lord, but I had a stroke in 2014 inside Woodstock Hospital. I'm originally from Miami. I moved here in 2005. But after I had the stroke, I happened to look at the end of my bed with 2 angels. And I tried to look, I said, what is that? And I said, Lord, you sent 2 angels here for me. I said, why did you send in? And he said, because the devil angel to stop the devil angel. Because Satan wanted to take me out. This wasn't the first time I faced death. A lot of times. And the Lord said, he said, Gloria, he said, take up your cross daily, because you don't know when you're going to go. So I thank God that I'm here this morning for this lesson. It's an eye-opener for me, and I have to go ahead and tell the story about my life. And then when I saw the 280, I didn't see, when I tried to look at their faces, it was a bright light, but I saw the long gown with the gold belt. But they didn't have no wings. This was the head of my bed, and that was the foot. They all reached all the way, they both were doing this to me. And I thank God for that vision. I thank Him for it, because I know they always there with me. Because a lot of times I don't, Satan want to kill me. So not just me, but all, he came to kill, steal, and destroy. He tried to take my peace, my joy from the Lord, but I didn't get bitter with God. He wanted me. I said, no, Lord, it ain't your fault. I know it ain't your fault. It's a medical, mishap. So I just take one day at a time. And I was telling my sister, I said, well, I'm going to go to Bible study with you. And the reason why is because I had got discouraged. My Christian life was going downhill. I saw myself, this is not me. I said, God, you're going to have to help me. Give me back my first love, which was you. Give it back, because I kept going further and further off the right road. So I thank God this morning for being here, and it won't be my last time. I thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, we got Dave's mom on here, Al's mom and dad, Millie, Shirley. Vote on Tuesday. All right. Do as the progressives do and vote often. All right. Military men, women, and families. And we're trying to get Dale's house up, that mansion he has up in Virginia sold. All right. Mary Ann's got family issue. Mary Fredericks has got family issues. Kathy's sister Trudy and her family. All right. That all covered?
I got one.
Yes, ma'am.
I got a praise.
Yes, ma'am.
I got the job.
You did. Very good. Well, now what does that mean?
That just means more work.
All right. Well, I guess that's a good thing. Tickled. That's pretty cool. Yeah, well, there you go. All right. Anything else we need to catch up on?
Yes, it is.
What? Yes,
I
ma'am.
just want to know, can everybody keep her in prayer?
Always.
Oh,
Yeah.
She goes on the fridge.
Yeah.
When you're on your fridge, you don't get off.
I
All right.
told her,
Okay. All right. I'll close in prayer. Thank you, Lord, for today. We thank you for your word. We thank you for what was spoken. Prayerfully, it was useful. And above all, pray that you just walk with us as we leave out of here. Allow us to function in you. Pull on your strength, not ours. Keep us focused and allow us to have a walk and a manner of life that is just totally focused on you. And in doing so, we give you all the honor and glory for it in Christ's name.